Just a little bit of that. And my personal favorite ingredient to add to the stuffing is some sliced jalapenos. Right out of the jar. This is of course optional. It's all up to your own taste. And you can put other kinds of peppers in here, whatever you like. But this just makes for a nice little surprise in the middle of the meatloaf. So now that we've done that, we're going to take our foil and very carefully slide your hand underneath to about the halfway point and then flip it. And our goal is to get it even. And then you take and you pinch these edges. Make sure it's nice tight seal here. Then we're going to take a little bit of our oil and put it in our baking pan, which I'm using a 9x13 Pyrex pan. You can use whatever you have. Just make sure to oil it so that the meatloaf doesn't stick. And then we take our meatloaf using the foil cradle that we just created and very carefully flip it into the pan. And actually, you could reuse this to cover it because we do want to cover it. And I'm a little low on foil, so we're going to reuse it. Don't worry, it's going to bake right along with the meatloaf. So, and into our 350-degree preheated oven, we're going to put that in there for 1 full hour. So I'm going to clean up a little bit, and I'll meet you back here in an hour. Oh yeah, you can hear that sizzling in there. Okay, so we've pulled the meatloaf out of the oven. The next thing we're going to do, and this is an optional step, but I recommend it highly. We're going to take the foil off. Oh boy, does that smell good already. But we're not done yet. The next thing we're going to do, take some regular ketchup here. Make sure to shake it before you open it. We're just going to put a nice little layer on top. All the way around. Oh, and while we're doing this, before I forget, we're going to turn the oven up to about 425, maybe 450, because we really want this to form sort of a glaze. You just take a spoon like this, spread it around nice and even. You can do barbecue sauce, you can do tomato paste, whatever your taste is. I think ketchup, it's got a little sweetness to it, and just really comes out pretty good. If you want, you can go all down the sides with it. I like it just on the top, maybe on the two edges there just a little bit. And then the next thing I like to do is take a little Parmesan cheese and sprinkle that right over the top. That'll kind of crisp up a little bit in the oven, brown a little bit. And make sure to shake this real well before you open it so you don't get too many of these big clumps that you want to break up here. So that's not too bad. A little bit more over here. And that looks good. And now with the slightly hotter oven, this is going to go back in the oven, uncovered, for about another 20 to 25 minutes. Now that the meatloaf has been in there for an hour and we've done our ketchup glaze, we're going to take three good-sized potatoes. Go ahead and wash them off. Give them a good rinse because we're going to keep the skins on. If you want, you can peel them, but the skins come up real nice and crisp. Just give them a good, nice rinse. Make sure you get all the dirt off of them. Make sure they're fresh potatoes, too. And we're going to go ahead and plug in our deep fryer. Now, if you don't have a deep fryer, you can do them in a frying pan with about 1 inch of oil, of vegetable oil, or you can use a pot with quite a bit of oil, though that tends to be a little wasteful. I would recommend going out and buying a nice deep fryer. They're not that expensive, and believe me, they are handy. Alright, so we have our 3 washed potatoes, and what we're going to do is cut them in half. Take each half. You're going to go down the middle, and then like a 45 down the side, 45 down that side, and you end up with these nice potato wedges. So proceed to do that for the rest of your potatoes. And what you end up with is these nice potato wedges. Now here's what we're going to do. While the deep fryer heats up and we wait for the meatloaf to finish, we're going to brine them. Now what brining does is it pulls the moisture out of the potatoes and then pulls the salt back into them. What it really does is it makes them cook much faster, because otherwise you have to burn them in order to get the inside done. All you need is 10 minutes to brine them. What you do is you put, it's going to look like a lot of salt. And it is a lot of salt, but remember, most of that is not going to actually make it into the potatoes. And just with a little cold water, you want to fill it up just to cover it. Alright, now that you've done that, you're just going to put a cover on it. You don't actually have to cover them. I just like to cover them because I like to give them a good shake to make sure the salt is evenly distributed. So you set that aside for now. And we're going to wait for this to heat up, and we'll be back in about 10 minutes. Now that the meatloaf is back in the oven for 20 minutes or so, we've got time to prepare our steak fries. They've been brining for, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 minutes. Doesn't matter, as long as they get at least 10 minutes. We're going to take this, and we're going to drain them. And now this is an important step, because if you don't do this, it's going to be way too salty. You want to rinse them in cold water. You just take it like this and give it a good toss. And then make sure to get them fully dry, or fully drained, I should say. They don't need to be dry. Now we're going to season these up a little bit before we put them in the deep fryer. And for that, I'm just going to stick with some garlic salt, or garlic powder and salt. If you have garlic salt, go ahead and use that instead. And you just want to go kind of liberally, not too much. You don't want to overpower it. And give this a good toss like this. And of course with your salt. You don't want too much salt, because remember, they have been soaking in salt for quite a while. Now, with that, we've got our deep fryer nice and hot. Very carefully put them in your basket, if you have a basket. Lower it in. And these are going to take about 8 minutes to fully cook. So we'll meet you back here in 8 minutes. Alright, it's been about 8 minutes now, and you can see how golden these steak fries have become. And I've taken my colander and I've lined it with a couple of paper towels. That's to help absorb some of the excess grease. Give it a good shake. Dump them right on that paper towel. I also like to give that a little toss just to try and soak up as much of that grease as possible. And on that note, our meatloaf should be just about ready. Alright, so it's been about another 20 to 25 minutes, and we're ready to dig in here. Let me get a serving fork here. We're going to cut right down the middle. I want to see what that stuffing looks like here. Oh yeah, let me get a slice. Alright. Right onto the plate there. One more slice on this plate. Alright, now we're going to just throw a few steak fries on each plate here. And we'll give it a taste here in a second. So Daniel, you ready to dig in?
Yes, sir.
Alright, let's give it a try here. I think that's better than my last one. Oh yeah.
That it is. The jalapenos have a nice touch to it.
It's almost like having a cheddar cheese popper right in the middle of your meatloaf.